they all look like typical middle-aged guys, you know,
Okay.
normal people.
Just,
Button-down shirts over a t-shirt, you know, basic concert wear. After they start playing,
It's
the
hard to
girl
believe
runs
you're
out,
once teens,
lead
right?
singer.
Or preteens.
She was something else, Jack.
Better light? Good.
Yeah. She was wearing, you know, do you remember that store in the mall where girls used to get like, goofy skirts or colored skirts or whatever for like days at school with rag sock? So she was wearing a shiny green rag sock shorts.
Said made sure to tell me to pass on to you.
And they
Said
were
it has nothing but rave reviews from everybody. That she was like, okay, thank you. Friendly. What do you think?
So they were
She's
hideous
heard nothing but amazing
It's
things.
she basically took her wardrobe and
Good.
Yep.
things and absolutely
She
not
takes
put
tremendous pride.
those
Yeah.
shorts.
Well, I know you have to give her full feedback. It's nice to hear the positivity and all that.
Like
So,
cowboy-ish.
They don't often hear
80s.
anything.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's
right.
like,
Or there's that. You either hear
good news.
nothing or.
It's like, oh, I didn't hear
No,
anything.
but
Must be
it's nice to
okay.
hear the accolades.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so-
Absolutely.
So,
I will
Yeah.
definitely pass it
Then
on.
her
She'll like that.
top
Give one of these.
consisted of four pieces of three-key tape
So this might be.
and this weird like leather over like a men's outfit, a full red fair outfit. Just that, and tied in the back with all little strings in the back. But that was totally bare, other than these couple strings. And then black gloves. Okay, so she's singing and gyrating and this is pretty good to see. So she's singing and dancing, and after the third song, she stopped. She's like,
Oh.
Betty, you noticed this? And like, all right, some people.
Oh.
And we're all like,
yeah. Sounds like mine. Well, I didn't have any downtime.
by the end of
Came home, ate a hard-boiled egg, and got back in the car.
Okay, good. All
she's
right,
now
cool.
up there in green shorts and KT.
Hey, Patty.
And that's how she
And
spent
Patty.
the rest of the concert.
Patty and Patty.
Sorry.
They're double. No problem.
No, I don't think so. I think the thing fell off. It wasn't made for a woman. It was flat. There was no room for it.
There we go.
Big room
Should
for
not be
his
sticky
chest.
either.
It was a man's breastplate, a Renaissance fair.
One thing just to wipe up the soda, but
And that's what she had to have.
Nephew's birthday today.
stickiness.
Otherwise she was
So my nephews are 9, 9,
Oh, okay.
7, 7, 07.
Oh, wow.
Now, can I tell you what my brother does for a living?
really kind
He's an OBGYN.
Really? Planned her out,
that
huh?
is so hilarious.
But she
What
kept
is that?
making something and
My
making comments about her.
nephews have a dad who's an OBGYN, my brother, is a
Okay.
doctor. And his sons were born on 7, 7, 07.
It was so funny. We laughed.
Not planned either, huh?
The first one, I think, the first one was a lucky 7, 7, 07. The
Yeah.
second one, I think, was a little more scientifically figured out.
Okay.
But he has never, he cannot ever forget his kids' birthdays.
No,
Not ever.
that would be,
You want name tags here?
what?
Do I want them out? I don't care. I know. It's,
Oh, wow. We just sat where we didn't have a tape, so. we-
yeah.
That's good.
Okay. At least whatever. Yeah.
They always say the more information you get, the better.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hitting.
Yeah.
diversify.
And is there a graduation
Yeah.
function?
That Thursday before everybody else started,
Yeah.
the Thursday before Labor Day, they all went in
Yeah.
and got the tour.
Sure.
We do. There's a packet in your folder.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it, but, no, I don't understand it, because to me, that's not Congress.
5:31, okay.
Make it happen, Captain.
All right, here we go. All right, this meeting is now called to order. This is the Raymond School District number 14 Board of Education Workshop dated this September the 9th, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call attendance, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're it.
I'm in, yeah, because there's no Ellie today, so. Ed Robinson,
Here.
Audrey Costick,
Here.
Janelle Wise,
Here.
Patty Wren,
Here.
Mike Bauer. Here.
Okay, moving on to verification public notice pursuant to 19.841 Wisconsin statutes.
Yes, this has been posted in all the usual places.
Okay. Good, good. All right, we move to approve the agenda of this meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have an approval. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of this meeting to include the review of draft of mission, vision, values, goals, norms, document, update on revenue, state trust fund loan and line of credit, referendum planning, looking at the numbers, the ask of the community, referendum planning, discussion about communication. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
All right, I'm up. Here we go. Hi, everybody. We have a lot to cover because obviously we're ramping things up here, but just a little start. School year's off to a great start. It's been it's been great to have kids here, great to see us running things and doing things. Obviously, taking copious notes. We've got a lot of new team members that just have ideas and thoughts on how things start and just looking to always improve. So feedback's been good so far. As we're also ramping up for communicating with our public, we're looking at, okay, how do I, what do we say, how do we say it around our referendum and some of the things that are ramping up there. Tonight's really about learning about more information. The more we know, the better we're informed, and we can communicate with our public and make sure that they understand what's happening on November 5th. And of course, continuing some of the work with some of our other things we've started already. So tonight we'll be tuning up a little bit of our mission, vision, values, goals. So in your folder, there's a packet. There's two packets. One is a student thing that's going to be discussed in closed session on Monday, so that's something for a later read. The other is on the right side of your packet. It's a Board of Education workshop agenda packet, and in there you've got the draft of our core values, mission, vision, strategic goals, leadership. We started this back in July. This was something we are following up from when we started our WASBA conversations about how to support each other in the transition to the new superintendent, and a board with some new membership. So this was born from those discussions. So we had committed, as Ed had mentioned, to revisiting this on a regular basis and looking at what it says to make sure that it aligns with what we believe. And then obviously, as we get closer to finalizing this, we should be able to pretty soon have this as, hey, this is the way we run things around here in terms of, the mission, vision, values, goals, and norms. So any discussion from the board about this document?
We came up with a mission statement, hey?
Well, the mission, yep, has been a mission for a while, It's one that we've talked about. The vision statement was the one that we had
Right,
talked about,
right,
not
right.
really having any vision statement that I could find. I did introduce this to staff, and they had kind of pointed me towards conversations, but never an actual landed vision statement. So part of our strategic planning that's going to occur in spring with our community as well, we'll be looking at the mission and vision, and maybe there's some wordsmithing that has to occur to make sure it makes sense with what we stand for and believe in terms of what our hope is here for Raymond School District. And obviously, the mission and vision are something that is typically board aware and sometimes board set. Boards definitely approve because they're living that work, but there's input from multiple stakeholders, teachers, community, students, because they're the ones that are living it too. So oftentimes you'll see it as the starting point for strategic planning. And then from there, we'll go into some analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then we'll go into actual strategic planning. But that's for a different meeting entirely.
Now, you shared this with the staff and with the teachers?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we had shared this and said, any thoughts, feedback from staff, and they all thought it was good to have these things written down. That's where we had the discussion about the vision piece, what exactly have we had. One of the staff members, like I said, had pointed to some work in 2015 that kind of started talking about vision, but didn't necessarily have any evidence of landing the plane, so to speak, in terms of the vision piece. So.
Well packaged, I think
Yeah.
summarizes the previous discussions we've had on it, looks good.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is that we would probably have this, at some point here soon for public consumption, so it's something that we publish and call out as we have our meetings and things. So in the case of my old district, this was often referenced and sometimes even read aloud to start off a meeting to talk about the values or talk about the beliefs, to kind of keep that conversation always looking forward. One of the things that was important, for example, under school board strategic goals, establishing strong fiscal oversight, promoting efficient and effective use of resources. That's an important one we're going to be talking about tonight that this meeting is completely aligned with. So I think when you have those conversations within the organization, sometimes to call those things out is nice because it keeps it really focused on a topic. So, anything else on the revisited discussion here? Okay. And when I talk with each of you, we have our conversations and things ongoing. Well, certainly you can share any insights you have once we have those conversations too. So, all right. On to our next agenda item, which is really looking at an update on revenue, state trust fund loan, and line of credit. So Patty's here, wonderful Patty, and we are here to talk about the state trust fund loan. Just give you an update. As you know, we were approved for the trust fund loan. What we were trying to determine is how is that trust fund loan going to sit in our budget? So we found out the answer is due to the fact we applied for it last year but received funding this year, it's going to be on this year's revenues. So we worked with our auditor, and that was their recommendation that it's this year's because you really shouldn't backlog revenue coming in. So what that does is that lowers where we thought our fund balance was ending last year. If you remember, Elise was suggesting that we would have done it last year because we weren't sure how long it was going to take to receive the funding. Initially, Dr. Hayden thought maybe we'd have it before, and Pollyanna Vision, he thought maybe we'd have it like in May, June. Nope, we didn't get it until August, so it's going to be on this year's fiscal year. So take all the numbers we had given and subtract 300,000. So what that does to our fund balance is that takes it down to 2% instead of 7%.
Ending
So,
this year.
Ending
Or ending
the
last
June
year.
fiscal year ending
Yeah.
would have us down in a 2% fund balance, which is low, very low. Probably the lowest it's been. And so the reality is that's definitely a talking point when we're communicating with the community about where our fund balance sits. I also know that there's two kinds of parts to the conversation with this, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight with the referendum, is that there's the history of what last year looked like and then the current year of things. And Ed and I have been talking about what some of those communications might look like too. But the reality is right now, the state trust fund loan will be book kept this year. We have started to finalize that and get all of the paperwork turned in. We're getting the actual amortization schedule as to when things will be paid. This first year is interest only, so we don't make a payment, and then we end up paying on the principal and interest next in 2025 fiscal year. So we've got sort of a reprieve for a year there. Remember, this is the same loan that we can take up to $1 million from as another tool that sometimes DPI pushes you towards when you have revenue issues. So we don't want this to be the tool because it's a loan and you have to pay back loans. But this is when people say what will happen if you run this budget through and we have a referendum that does not pass, then what would happen would be additional loan. And so we probably could put in a request to loan and borrow. But again, every time we do that, it puts us in a position of a worse dance partner, so to speak, in that, we're in a weaker position each time we request. So again, not necessarily a long-term strategy, but it is one that when someone asks you, so what if this doesn't, they go into what if conversations, which are very meaningful. It's important you understand that piece. So the other piece of it is our short-term borrowing. So because of the way things pay out throughout our fiscal year, we don't always have all the money to do all of our paying, which is a little bit alarming because people don't realize that schools don't just sit on this money. Now, when you have a fund balance, that's typically what is your reserve that would help you not have to short-term borrow. Our policy speaks to the fact that we don't put a number on the amount we'd like for our policy for fund balance. We would like it to minimize short-term borrowing. Ideally, it's 20% is kind of the number that most districts kind of stick with. I was doing some work this last summer with a district that has a 95% fund balance currently, which is insane. To the point where Baird is wondering, how can we help the community understand pieces? Is the stream working?
No. It says standby. I'm afraid to push a button.
I don't want to bother you guys, that's why.
Oh, okay. It's saying live here.
No, camera says standby.
It says excellent connection and stream on this camera, so maybe it's not talking real well. I'll check it out in a little bit on a commercial break.
Commercial break?
That's it. That said, the fund balance is recommended at 20%, and we're not anywhere close to that. So the short-term borrowing picture for us, we do have to have a line of credit that we take out 1.2 million in a line of credit we've taken out a number of years with Community State Bank, correct?
Yes.
Forgive me, I'm new to the community here, but not new to the Community State Bank apparently. So we borrow from them. It's a wonderful partnership. We did meet with them to talk through our numbers and everything, and they had offered, hey, maybe we can extend your line of credit, make it more. We're not interested in that. We need 1.2. We don't want to start to leverage ourselves into positions that borrowing upon borrowing, it just is not a good look and it's not necessary, because the 1.2 right now that we currently borrow can carry us through the year successfully. We don't really even have to borrow on that, depending on how things go with the fiscal picture.
Then we get to pay it back right away if we want. There's no time limit
Yes,
or nothing like
correct.
that? And-
Correct.
Okay, and interest rate is whatever it is at the time, right?
Right, interest rate is
Only
the
on
fair
amount
market
that
interest
you
rate.
Take out,
What's that?
only on the amount that.
Only on the amount we take out.
Right.
So if we draw, we
The
pay.
total amount.
We don't take the full lump 1.2, that would be foolish.
Yep.
We take it as we need it,
Yep.
and then pay it back as soon as we can when the disbursements come in throughout the year.
Gotcha.
So with that though, there are 3 points in the year that the board has not the board, that the bank identified help me out with this, our auditor, it's called securities protections.
No, yes, I think so.
Yes, there are 3 points in the year when you would have less money than you should in securities, so there's a potential liability, there's a potential issue that if all of a sudden something catastrophic happened with the bank and the bank closed, like didn't sell, but literally closed, like happened in California, I think 2 years ago. It doesn't happen often, but if the bank were to just shut their doors, there would technically be a liability out there that our auditor was saying we want to be aware of. And so there are 3 points where we would be extending securities provisions. There's no charge. What's that?
Pledged security.
Pledged securities, thank you. And those pledged securities would basically be an insurance policy on our 3 times a year that we are below the threshold that they would like us to be. There is no cost for this. It's just the bank making us aware. We ask the bank to pledge the securities. They say, we will contact all of our lenders and let them know you'd like to pledge securities, and that's how it's taken care of. So I'm not exactly sure how it works beyond that. I can certainly bring the bank in if you'd like to do this. We have never pledged securities before, but he felt like, and the auditor felt like it would be a good security for those 3 points throughout the year where we are borrowing and extended beyond a means that they were comfortable with. So it is not something that is anything red flaggish. It's just a matter of a suggestion our auditor had, and the auditor made it, and we followed through. So
And it costs us nothing.
it costs us nothing. It's a program that the bank, Community State Bank, will provide for people who ask, but they don't
What that
typically.
basically is that the bank shuts its doors, another bank can pick it up.
Yes,
Is that what that means, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
the debt will be covered.
Right.
So it's meant, so that way our bank isn't just floating fake money around.
It did come with the caveat that someday they might charge for it.
Yes, they may charge for it someday. They currently do not charge for that. However, I think as organizations are becoming more versed in this investment world, and you see scary things like a bank in California randomly closing. This is not a bank acquisition. Those are totally different. Mergers and acquisitions are different. This is a closure, like the money's no longer secure, and that's a problem. So that's why we were looking into that strategy for one of our plans for the coming year. So there's an update on that particular piece as well. Referendum planning, looking at the numbers and the ask for the community. So we're doing a lot of numbers crunching and planning and trying to get things ready to communicate with our public here. So tonight is really about taking a look at some of the information we have and then talking through bits and pieces. Again, some of it's a little bit of repeat to help, calibrate you, and the more you see it, the better you become with it.
Hey, Mike,
Yes,
can you speak into the microphone?
Sure.
It's hard to hear you sometimes. Thank you.
sure. I've never been told I'm too quiet, but I will certainly talk about it. All right. So this is an example of something that some of these slides would be solicited for our flip book that would be created for the public. People like coffee table books, maybe they want better topics than a referendum, but the reality is it's good for conversation. So it starts with our mission, of course. That's why we're all here. The increasing headlines we see everywhere, referenda everywhere, all around us, every angle. This is some data as of today. In fact, this slide is going to be amended a little bit because I added some more information to it since. But this does not include the information. There were 93 referenda questions asked in February and April last year. So 93 different districts or schools asked. Some asked one question, some asked 2 questions. 138 referendum questions are on the ballot in November. That is by far a record. 94 was the old record. So we're coming off of 2 record referenda asks. The reason why I'm telling you this is not just a Raymond issue when it comes to revenue in schools. The Raymond issue comes into play with how we managed our revenue last year and how last year's issues with finances occurred and didn't help our situation with our fund balance. But separate conversation, and the real one moving forward, is how do we get appropriate funding in this building for the children who are here? All right. So 58 of those questions are debt issuance, which means those are like the Union Grove High School ask, which is for building facilities improvements. 79 of those questions are for operational, like ours. Some communities are asking both. Where my kids go at Sussex Hamilton had both on the ballot and both passed. Some communities had both and 1 passed. Some communities had 2 questions and 0 passed. So if you're wondering, 61% of the questions asked in February and April passed. So over half, but about 2/3. So when you think about this, this is really surpassing, it's surpassing, there's like 400, I got the number wrong on there, it's 421 districts in the state. This referendum period alone, that's 1/3. So 1 in 3 potentially are asking questions. That's if every district asks one question. Some are asking two, so it's not a perfect statistic. But the shock there is, wow. That doesn't include the 93 that already went. So again, you're looking about, anywhere from 40 to 50% of districts in the last calendar year will have asked for money, revenue increases, which tells you that if you want to have that take action, contact your legislator and talk to them about how they fund schools and the concerns. This is the listing. It's just sort of a telling piece. Since 1992, the majority of the state, almost the whole state, has asked for some kind of referendum. I mean, spoiler alert, 30 years is a long time, so it's kind of a little lackluster on the stat, but it's a pretty map. So the reality is, though, more and more districts, even the white ones that haven't asked, are starting to turn dark blue, which means they're going to ask. So this is a district map. This is not a county map. If you'll notice, there's 421 little slices there. There's a huge number of districts that are increasing, that are asking for more revenue from referendum, from non-recurring referenda. Our referendum question we're asking is non-recurring, which means 4 years and done. There are districts that are asking for recurring, which is a little more alarming to communities. There are a lot of opinions out there. It's basically a blank check. It's forever. How long is forever? A long time. And the reality is ours is non-recurring for a reason. So hopefully in the next 4 years, we can figure out some things, increase enrollment, as well as work with our legislators to get better funding or different funding from our state. Here's the history of our referendum. The last of which was 2022. That was a big one. That was one where we had debt coming off of the books that was paid down, and we used funds from the school district to pay that debt early, which seemed like a good fiscal move at the time, with a strategy employed of debt rolls off, new debt rolls on, your taxes still lower, it's win-win. Your taxes are lower and you get the referendum for the money you need for facilities improvements. And the result of that was a failure by 180 votes roughly, 170 votes. So again, just to know the types of referendum we've had, we only had one that was in the vein of what we're looking at here, which was for 35,000, and that was in 2002, which was similar to what we're looking at here, except ours would be 750,000 times 4. These are different. The issuance of debt is usually spread out over 20 years, so the amount that it costs the taxpayer is a lot less per year. It's like a mortgage. It's spread out over 20 years versus 4 years. So our hit for a taxpayer is higher on the mill rate short term because our borrowing is only short term, it's 4 years. Not borrowing, our tax assessment, our tax payment is for 4 years. This is just another chart we have that shows the gap. And why is this important? If inflation and schools were aligned, you wouldn't see a giant gap at the end. So this is the inflationary rate since 2013, and if the school contributions they're steady, we're good, we're getting our 325, we're getting it per pupil each year, it's just kind of baked into things and given to us, but it's not. You'll notice there's a couple years there, 2016, where we didn't have state funding coming in, 2017, 2022, 2023 were COVID, where we didn't have the biennial budget was frozen, we were using ESSER funds. So again, we haven't always had a year-over-year contribution additional to pupil costs. But again, if we had just kept up with inflation, the math on this is actually eerily similar to what we need. 2,300 times the number of kids we have is $775,000. So had we kept up with inflation, in theory, we wouldn't even have to ask for anything because we would have enough money coming in. Again, theoretical.
I think that would be a good number to show in parentheses there.
I can certainly add that, yep.
Roughly 400 kids, or
Yeah.
not really, but to show, that's how much we get, that's it.
Right. So again, this is just a formula for, why are we seeing such an increase in operational referenda? Because again, there's only so many ways we fund the schools. It's district membership, times the cost of kids, times a few other variables like grants and other fixtures, and then we have to insert in there some other way to get additional revenue, which in this case is a referendum. Again, some of our numbers inserted here. Right now, this is our current calculation, 314 FTE. These are resident students. This is not including open enrollment. We're somewhere around 400 when you calculate an open enrollment. And we're actually a little bit lower for resident membership. I think we're around 306 or 308 this year. But we're anticipating. Next week is third Friday. So that's a big day for us. It is the third Friday of the month, which is fun, but it's also when we count our students. Again, mill rate, just a reminder, when we talk with our public about mill rate, this is the cost per 100,000, cost per 1,000, and then calculated out by 100,000. So $3.77 would equate out to $377 at a typical home. That's our current mill rate. The budget that we just went over in our annual meeting anticipates that number going up by 7% because of the fact that state aid has reduced. Equalization aid went down because our property values went up. Not the right kind of formula, but that's where we sit. So $3.98 will be the mill rate for the current year if everything just goes as is. No matter what we do, it's going to $3.98. The additional mill rate would go up to $5.10 if the referendum would pass. So it's $1.12. $1.13, actually $1.12, because keep in mind $3.98 is our new mill rate. So $1.12 above that is $5.10. And again, just understanding the importance of the assessed and equalized value. Property values are really how we establish the tax formula. And so when people come to you and they say, my assessed value went through the roof, which just happened a few weeks ago, this is certainly something you want to be aware of. We don't base the formula solely on assessed or equalized. It's actually a combination of both. Fair market value went up a couple of years ago here, maybe a year ago, and that's adjusted every year. And then the issue comes in when the assessed value is lower than 80% of the market value, and that's what triggers a reassessment. So if you're wondering why they decide now, it's because we hit that magic threshold of just below 80% value of assessed value, equalized value. That's why we went through. So again, understanding this part of it is really important, and I think it's important that we spend our time now talking about. So this is how the picture for our ask has been formulated. There's a separate piece that we certainly are working on to make sure that we understand our ability to survive the lack of a referendum through our fund balance. And that fund balance was depleted last year based on the fiscal year that we had. So there were variables that we will define, and the board is working to identify where things went in terms of the finances. And that's something that we're going to be sharing next week as part of our reporting in our regular board meeting. So the reality is we have the opportunity to clarify those pieces. And I think it's important that the board, identify what those things are as clearly as they can. And we've been working together as I've been meeting with Ed, Patty, Baird, and figuring out some of these pieces and doing the learning. So it's been a good set of conversations. They're not easy conversations because what happened last year simply cannot happen again. But what happened, happened. And so we've got to identify that for the public. All right? So what I want to do now is turn our conversations to our packet here, which is really looking at our planning guide. So again, the purpose of this particular guide is that we would talk about what it takes to get the message out. I think, board meetings are a venue for that, but I think it's tricky because board meetings have a lot of other business they cover. So typically in communities, there are other things you do to reach out to people. And we have recently received some guidance, from various firms around the area have given out just unique guidance to all these districts because there's so many of us going to referendum. What are the do's and don'ts of, talking with your public about a referendum? And so it's important that you verse yourselves. I think I sent you a brief last week. Just read that to talk about some of those pieces. When you're wearing your school board hat, that's a special hat. It's a hat you wear with tremendous pride and certain authority. And so it's different than your community hat. Kind of like when we were in the meeting, the open meeting a few weeks ago, the public meeting. You're public during that public meeting for the annual meeting. You're not board members. Just like when you leave here, individually, you're just people in the community. But how do you get the information out to the people so that they know and can feel informed? And the unique thing is, we can chirp all day long and send a lot of information all day long, but that's a small portion of the community that's impacted by a referendum. So tonight's conversation really is, how can we get the info to the people in the best way possible? So our picnic was a success. We had good, camaraderie, well attended, great sponsorships. It was wonderful. It was also our first trial at a postcard. And so we learned some things from the postcard. There's a way we can hopefully get that postcard to everyone. It's not a perfect system. The postcard is a stuff and drop. It is not uniquely labeled. So we print a certain number, we give it to the post office. They have their postman will stuff it and drop it. They don't have a unique address on there. So if they gave it to the wrong zip code or the wrong side of the eye or whichever, I don't know what happened in some cases. There were people on some of the different zones we're in that didn't receive a postcard. So we're working on trying to identify a better way to disseminate the information. Should we do some sort of mailable, something printed to our public?
So
I-
some members in Raymond didn't get the picnic postcard?
No,
Correct.
Oh,
I talked to the post office.
you were, okay,
didn't
so
even
the
get
Raymond
ours.
Heights, what?
So I talked to the post office, the Caledonia post office, explained exactly what happened. He said, oh, I'm sure a lot of them went on to Caledonia on the other side and they're probably wondering why are we getting this. So he gave me a phone number in Oak Creek and it's called an EDDM,
Okay.
and that, I'll give you this.
Yep.
And you send out things like this to residents of the community.
Mhm.
Now, this just happens to be a Bryan style, but I just, as an example, you print up these, you give them to them, and then the post office, they just stuff them in. But you gotta be very clear at the post office, send it with these delivery people, don't send it with the people that go on the other side of the aisle. So,
Right.
anyway,
I mean, I got plenty of them for last year for Waterford's referendum, and I'm like, I'm nowhere near Waterford.
Sure.
but there's a different, there's a permit you can get too. You can explain that
Yep.
ECC or whatever that is. He said, talk to him about that. Oak Creek is the best place to get your information. And then, because that's like the main post office in southeast Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they will help us
Good.
do that, so,
Because the reality is we've got to make sure information gets out.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we're working steadfast on making sure the information we send out is accurate.
right.
So again, some of the pieces that are in this might be charts and graphs we're going to be putting in play. I did want to share with you a couple of other infographics we're working on right now. So there's some nice features in Canva that we're working through to create information that, looks nice visually and is simplified with some good little symbols on there or graphs and whatnot. This is an infographic that actually we're going to be putting online. It's easier to see when you're in a digital form because you can click on the pieces and actually interact with it, and it'll make it larger for reading purposes. But this particular piece just calls out the increase in the mill rate should a referendum get passed, and obviously some of those other pieces. So as we look at these kinds of info, we certainly can create and produce whatever we'd like. And we want to make sure that on these pieces, you'll notice it says vote, not vote yes. And it's not a plea that is in any way trying to slight someone, it's just saying, this is the information, the best we can provide it to you. You need to make the informed voting decision. And if you have questions, let's talk about it. So this is the kind of thing that we'll build into a mailer. So we are planning on doing a mailer that would go to all the communities, all the areas, all the people within our community. And that'll share some basic information about the school, celebrate some things. We'll have a few dates on that mailer. We'll be putting down published dates for when we'll have meetings, because it's important we have meetings. Tom, the superintendent at Union Grove High School, and I are talking about a joint event so that we both will be there to talk about Raymond and UGHS, because there's a tax impact on some people in the community, well, pretty much everybody for double if they're in the Raymond community as well. So he and I are coordinating what that will look like. Tomorrow night there is a UGHS, we just found out today. He sent the information to us. There's a listening session tomorrow, or a sharing session tomorrow, presentation at Union Grove Elementary School about Union Grove High School. So if anyone is able to go to that, I'd encourage you to go to that particular meeting just to learn about that piece. They're different referendum though. Theirs is facilities, ours is operational. But at the same time, it's both taxpayer dollars. So again,
Down a little bit?
yes.
There you go.
So again, you know, we're working through the basics of, you know, exactly what we put on these pieces of information. Keep in mind, when I mentioned facilities too, that's another caution. We are not going to operational referendum for facilities, but the two kind of merge when you have needs in your building that could tap into your resources, like if a boiler goes, or you have needs in your mechanicals, or the roof has an issue. Those are things that still cost us money that comes out of our operating costs. So therefore, there's a little bit of a carryover, but we have to be cautious to not say, we need this referendum to work on our facilities, because that's not really what we're doing.
Wouldn't you call
You
that
can't do that.
unexpected or unplanned maintenance items?
Yes, unplanned maintenance would be a
Yeah.
good descriptor of that. Unscheduled, unplanned maintenance,
Yeah.
for sure. Again, the caution there is just that we're not doing this for the purpose of
Right.
getting money for facilities. That's a separate conversation that people did bring up at the annual meeting, if you remember.
Yep.
You know, does this lead to a future facilities referendum? It may. It's too early to tell. We gotta crawl before we walk. And this is the first step here.
But this wouldn't necessarily lead into that.
No,
That's just a decision based on if we want to upgrade or make it more beautiful or whatever.
Well,
it's based on a lot of factors.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff to do on that one.
Sure. But you could argue if we can't keep the thing floating between now and then, it's gonna be a hard conversation to have, you know.
Right.
So, the other question I get a lot of times from people, and you may get it too, is why don't you just merge? You're small, just merge with Yorkville, or merge with Drought, or just merge, let them buy you up. There's a couple of things you have to know about that. It's not as easy as it sounds. No matter what, you're gonna pay for public education here. So you might as well pay for a place that's in your vicinity, because if you don't pay for this place, you're gonna pay for one of those places. And that's if one of those places wants to date us, meaning we're not a great partner right now because we've got debt. That debt would carry over to them. The debt doesn't go away. Drought would have to agree, or Yorkville would have to agree to take on the burden and all the stuff on our books to become their books. And then you talk about the facilities they're going into. Drought probably isn't necessarily ready for 400 more kids,
Right.
right? Anyone that's been to Drought, and I hear the audience kind of chuckle, it's not ready for it. So the reality is they're not built for, because they weren't built for the size of school that we are. So again, those are all pieces to the puzzle that oftentimes just, on the surface, it's very simple. We'll just merge. Can't afford to be there, then just merge. And then of course there's other issues like, you know, class sizes and other pieces. So again, there's lots of pieces to that I think just, it's a fair conversation to have, but just one that I would encourage you to direct, you know.
What would we think that this school, as it is today, the maximum number of students we could feel good about having here?
We're at about 400, I can't imagine it'd be many more.
It wouldn't be, there were times when people have told me to
How
go.
much?
425, I think.
So we're getting close, we're
Yeah.
close to the capacity.
425, 450, maybe at max, like crazy, 500, but there are people who've talked to me from the public who had kids who went here a long time ago, and they were in the mid-solid fours, if not upper fours. So, what's that?
434.
434, there we go. So the reality is, that I do
We're not-
think there's a cap. We're not too far off of.
Yeah, we're within 10%.
We still fill the place up, and there's still, kids seem to be becoming more and more, gigantic these days. Tough, stronger, lots of protein. So the reality is, these kids are growing, and the needs are growing too, because you have classrooms with a lot of stuff going on. This school is not built with technology in classrooms, so you get bodies in there, you get a bunch of Chromebooks firing, the heat goes up. It's just an interesting thing to be a part of. Middle school is already challenging enough with some of the freshness in those classes with body odor. So the reality is, it gets close.
It was building, it's not easy.
How big does anybody know how big Drought or Dover is?
100,
100?
Yeah,
drug, I don't,
droughts time,
Yeah.
and it's about to say, it's.
Dover ain't very big either. Or what's the one right? No. What's the one right there on 45 and Cape? North Cape.
okay.
Yeah, that's the same.
So the point is, we definitely know the facilities they have
I don't know
are
what
built
the-
for housing.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, they're real small too, they're probably smaller than.
So again, I think identifying those pieces is important, so that when people ask you about a simple solution they have, and again, entertaining, it's fine, and let's talk about it, but here's why it isn't just a plug and play as easily as they think it is.
Unless that's Waterford School District.
So, the other piece of this is, as you look down this particular handout, so the flip book will create, and the flip book will have, there'll be color copies, digital copies available. Some of those are similar to like the posters we created, which you'll notice the poster already has to be corrected because this says we have a 7.9% fund balance. We no longer have that, so I get to correct that poster we just made. But that's the dance we dance. So we wanted the information we had to be accurate when it goes out,
And
but
that's purely because of the 300K.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
This way.
300K is actualized this year. It should put us in the same debt picture at the end of the year this year.
Right.
The numbers are the same at the end of the year, but
Just closing out last year at a.
closing out the books at a different number. Yep,
Mr. Leach, per the internet, Drought has 89 students.
per the World Wide Web, thank you.
That's,
North Cape is too.
89 kids.
US News Education.
All right, so sub 100. All right, so the point is the flip book will have a number of pages in it. They will not be busy like this though. It'll be a simple chart and then some text. And I'm going to design it with a chart and then a couple bullets underneath so that you can kind of read it through with people. It's available. It'll be available online as well. So I'll push that out to you when we have a draft of it, and you can kind of see, what charts and graphs you feel are meaningful. We don't want to make it too long. We have a frame from my prior district that has about 20 pages or so of charts and graphs. But again, at what point are you saturating people versus just giving them information? So we'll be creating that piece of it here soon. We had direct referendum information, back to school picnic. We had the posters out for about 12 minutes until they blew over and shattered, which I hope is not the way the referendum goes. So we did get better posters now, better actual frames for the posters that are not going to shatter the second they hit the ground. But the back to school picnic was great. It was also, like I said, a really good trial for us to figure out the postcard thing. So good news there. The budget hearing, we had some posters and handouts there. The monthly board meeting workshops like this, we've got information being shared. The regular board meetings, what I'd like to see and I'd recommend, what worked well in other places I've been, is that the board always has something ready to go to comment about regarding the referendum during the comment section. So giving an update, giving some thoughts, talking about conversations you're having, whatever you feel like is a reasonable thing to bring forth in the conversation during a board meeting. The board meeting has that time built in. So we're not looking for a bang-up presentation, but certainly a time for you to provide comments, provide your opinion, your thoughts as a board member individually. So those comments are, I think, powerful and can be beneficial. Additionally, we are creating weekly Wednesday meetings with me. And it's not just about coming together at 9 in the morning because I found a time that works for me. It's about targeting a certain audience. We're hoping that when we have our senior breakfast and we have other events, that we can invite people from the community into our schools to have these conversations. If I have time, I will never shy from the conversation. So if I have a chance and someone says, hey, can you talk? Keep in mind, I will definitely talk. And as you get to know me, that's not a problem.
So how do you get to be one of your Wednesday morning people?
You just show up.
Okay.
It's 9
So
a.m.
9 a.m. on Wednesdays, what I'm asking is that myself would be there and then one of you would commit to being there. We can rotate through. I think it's beneficial for you to hear the concerns of the public as well as the ideas of the public, as well as be able to, sharpen your sword about talking about it. So if you can commit, I know that sometimes work schedules cannot. We have some board members who are more flexible than others. For those that can't make that time, I am asking the board to consider town hall chats, or I don't know what you want to call them, some sort of open venue that would allow you to have a listening session or a talking session or an info session, kind of like what we're doing tomorrow, what Union Grove High School is doing tomorrow night. And that would be some place that I would ask the board to determine. Maybe it's at Village Hall, maybe it's at, a place of faith, maybe it's, again, the purpose of those is not that the board gathers, it's that a board member or two, which is totally reasonable, not a quorum, would show up and basically present, the information on behalf of the district. I could go to those, there's no problem with that, I'll make myself available, but that's the thought. So we have Wednesdays that I'll lock in from 9 to 10, and I set it from 9 to 10 because sometimes conversations go long, and sometimes the conversations with a person you've already had conversations with, because people want to come back and talk more and more. It's good to have that, but I think setting time limits is a good use of everybody's time. So the Wednesday chats will occur. That already went out in the newsletter last week. And again, I'm already getting feedback on, hey, this is great, I love it. I'm also getting feedback on, hey, are there any other times, because I can't do 9 a.m. because I work, or, I sleep at that time. Who knows? So the reality is...
Beginning this week?
Beginning this week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got the next 7 Wednesdays identified. There's nothing on the 25th because I'm out of the area at my new superintendent's conference. But otherwise, the 11th, 18th, October 2nd, October 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, those are all dates that are identified for that. And again, a board meeting and a superintendent at each of those. So if you could let me know, check your calendars, and just when I check in with you later this week, you can let me know what days work for you. Go ahead.
The town hall, could that be like a village board meeting? If we asked to be on the agenda?
Sure. I
Speed
mean,
our piece there?
any venue you feel like you can get. So for example, Kiwanis, Rotary, faith-based groups, neighborhood groups, village meetings, I have it on the bottom of this list.
Okay.
If you've got ideas for a place,
All right.
I'm new here, I don't know all those ins and outs and all the places that people are gathering. I even had conversations in people's kitchens, because they said, hey, stop by. Okay, great, I'll talk to you in your kitchen. It's a little weird, but okay. So I'll go, I'll do it. It's okay, as long as they have, a nice iced tea for me.
Anybody do a crocheting day? I'll
That's right.
come.
That's it.
You crochet?
No.
Crochet? That's it.
I don't crochet.
So what are we thinking in terms of other ways? We will have our website, we will have emails that go out, we'll have newsletters that go out from the school. So if you are ingrained in the school, we certainly will get that to you. We are going to be sending out on the mailer that if you'd like to be included in other school communications, please give us your email. That'll go on our mailer that we send out. The mailer will include any dates we publish. So after tonight is when I'll start to put those dates. So the back side of that mailer will say, you want to talk more, come to these events. And then invite them, if they want to talk more digitally, they give us their email. So then they would have to email us at Raymond, our school website email, if that makes sense.
One good thing, I think I told you when we talked earlier this week, would be to do like the town hall, the village meeting, the board meeting, because that's pretty much the only thing that really gathers people in the community right now, besides the school board meetings. So,
Well, but like you said, there's
there's other things, I mean, you know, people with
Church.
church and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think
And I think it's divide and conquer. I mean, the reality is you don't all, in fact, you really shouldn't all be at these events. If you're gonna be at these events, all of you, we have to post it. So just so you know, like, we have to coordinate the efforts, because otherwise we're gonna be posting a lot of meetings, which is fine, but it just adds a layer. So while there's strength in numbers, I think it's hard because you get about 2 and you gotta post.
Yes.
Okay.
you know, I talked to some community members that I know that like to talk with their little cliques and get to know some of the, you know, like, spreads like wildfire. Once you tell one of the older people, then you talk to the other person and the other
Sure.
person, and so, I mean, that, but it's going to their house and saying hi, and how you doing, you know?
Some door-to-door work involved, yep.
Yep.
And if people are asking, how do I get more information, or, you know, or they get a mailer and they have questions, obviously you wanna continue the conversation and give them an opportunity to share.
Do we dare do a door-to-door kind of thing?
The board can do whatever they like, the community, and I do have a number of parents who have reached out to me that are on, I'm meeting with our PTO tomorrow night, and they're asking how they can help, and they wanna mobilize, and they wanna Facebook things up, and they wanna get things communicating out with, again, we can give the troops stuff. We just can't be the ones that are saying some of those things. For example, you know, really, again, being really clear, not to say, if you don't vote yes, the school's going to implode. I mean, you don't wanna create fear tactics into this. It's just
Give them the
merely,
information.
here's the information, here, I'm a person that works at the school, here's why it's important to know the numbers and vote.
Okay.
People will do enough opinionating as they have their social media about it, and that'll happen regardless. So we just want to arm them with accurate information. One of the other pieces too that's important too is we have created some FAQs. The FAQs are helpful if and when someone posts something that is not truthful. Not that that ever happens on the internet, but if there's something that's not accurate, it really helps us to then be able to say that somebody, like if Patty sees it, and Patty would actually post and say, here's the information I can provide you, in case you're wondering for your purposes. We don't get into matches with people, it's not worth it, but if you want to share information, it's certainly a good way to dispel things. And communities are all different. We had some experiences up where I was, where things got interesting with community members who just sort of found their own way to get information out, and it wasn't always accurate. So we did our best effort to try to send out redactions or corrections or things that needed to happen, you know, based on what was flying around. So.
There's a lot of misconception out there. I mean, if I wasn't on the board, I probably would be one of those folks. You know, what the heck? What's going on? How do we need the money? Why?
Right.
But so.
My taxes are high enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people are, and I can't fault them for that.
No.
Okay.
So it's about getting the information, getting the visuals, getting the conversation started, so that people feel like they are informed. So our media plan also includes, we need to land a plane on the town halls and other outreach. If we can start to solidify like who's going to do what where. I can certainly push that out to you all, but if you can give me some ideas tonight, that'd be helpful. And start to frame up some times, because keep in mind, we literally have 8 weeks now.
Yeah.
Between 8 and 9 weeks is what we're
Hear
looking
it all the time.
at. What's that?
56 days.
There you go, 56 days.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information in writing that has to happen to get the information out.
So, I could probably reach out to the board, village board, and try to set something up for the village to get information out and see what we could do about getting information out at that. I'll reach out to the president and a couple of members and see what we would need to do to get onto that agenda, and see what we could do about it, or
Are you
just make a
familiar-
public comment.
Do you know the village board at all?
No, just a little bit in passing, I think a couple of them at the annual meeting.
Yeah.
Introduce
I know.
themselves.
It might be nice for you to just go to
Oh,
one
yeah.
of them and
Yeah.
speak your piece, let people know that,
Yeah,
who's Mike Leach?
that's it, who is he? Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Last Monday of the month.
Last Monday.
Yeah.
I I know that, because I know we didn't have our rescheduled one in the last Monday, so.
All right.
So I'll start working on that and try to reach out and see what we can do, and then contact you guys and see what we have to do and what we can do about getting them to that.
Yeah.
as soon as
Which would
possible.
put us last Monday of this month is what? Six, yeah, this is September, thank you. 23rd, 30th? 26th? 30th, I thought, yeah.
Would you need to be on the agenda, or could that just be a public comment?
We could probably do public comment, but they
is
try to
that
keep that to
limited?
2
I was gonna
minutes.
say that's
2 or
limited.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why I would say I'll talk to them and see if we can get it put onto the agenda instead of just doing, a
2 minute.
3-minute, 2-minute, blah, 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 and then no one.
Well, and if you can't, even having 2 minutes is better than nothing.
Right,
Because you can at least get some pieces said and then direct them to our website,
right.
you know, please.
So for that, and then if we can't get it on for this month, at least maybe by the end of next month, which is right before we go to school.
Sure.
So
Right.
try to do both.
Any Kiwanis or Rotary or faith-based groups that we can think of?
Not that I'm aware of.
How about, how big is the RCO?
Or CBO?
Yeah, RCBO.
Um,
I don't know when their
I
meetings
know
are.
Terry and I talked, Terry was a great sponsor.
Right,
for-
right.
For Benny, let's talk about a few other events, so I can certainly reach out and see, you know, how to get to their group and how they meet, for sure.
I think Jason Mosier and Kerry Holler are part of it, they may know something too. So, they keep
Alright.
asking me, I just look.
Yep. So again, and the thought of that would be that I would give you a presentation, I would give you the ability, I'd even go with you to set it up and kind of run the tech and even talk with you. It's just a matter of, you know, we've got to get the board mobilized on that front.
Right.
I think the village, reaching out to them to understand, I think the hall sometimes I understand is used for like a quilting group goes there, so just maybe seeing if they have a schedule that can be
Groups.
shared if there's anything. I also know the firehouse, they will also let folks come in and talk about some things, and that's a good group that's connected in the community to potentially also educate on the topic, so.
There is a,
Yeah.
the fire day, fire safety day is at the end of the month,
Yep.
on Saturday, the 28th, I think it's the last Saturday of the month.
Yes.
I am not,
They don't do the pancake breakfast no more.
I am not here for that day, but if we could get someone from school, I certainly can get one or two of my administrators to come, they're willing to help. It's not that they skipped tonight, I told them, don't worry, we'll talk about it a lot tomorrow. But I can certainly assign them and say, hey, let's get some people there, because that's a great event, I know it's very well attended, and to have a table there, just to have
Yeah,
information
for
would
sure.
be a good reach as well.
I'll be.
I was looking up the school, like the concert, I mean, just to have tables present, so if people can, but it didn't look like there were any great overlaps.
Right. So we also I will overlap, Union Grove's high school superintendent asked if we had an event he could come to here, and perhaps it's, you know, the next board session we have for this, he could present even. Or we could have it as part of our open meeting, you know, the regular meeting, to have a presentation on behalf of that, or just following that meeting, have a presentation, because again, I think you want to keep the information clear to the point, but I think there's real benefit in us doing that together. So we'll find out about what that might look like.
Yeah, and I think people would like it if we had, something for the UGHS one here, rather than having to travel all the way to Grove to figure it out, because a lot of
Yep.
people are having problems with the times that they're having it at.
Yep.
Even getting there, because did the last one, I think was like 4 o'clock or something like that, and a lot of people were at work.
Yeah,
They
so
were
I will,
at an open house, and they
we'll
were.
have one in the evening. We'll have one in the
I
evening
saw a
here
lot of
that,
complaints.
from UGHS that I think makes sense, for sure. And he and I are talking as we speak.
I forget when the firehouse monthly meeting is,
Yeah,
but I'll ask. Because I'm also on the fire commission, my dad on the fire department, so I'll ask him and see when their monthly meeting
Yep.
is, and see if we can get in there and talk to them.
Okay.
how about like horseshoe night or bags night? at
We're
the
done.
bar? You all done? Nothing
We're done
else
with
going on there?
horseshoes, But that's mostly people ain't from our community that are on that.
No.
Snowmobile club, but
We don't have fall ball going through Raymond.
that's show them up and see if
Sure.
they let me
Do
talk.
they have a
Some
monthly
information.
meeting?
Our first one is Wednesday.
Is
I
PTO?
would, I would give them a heads up and say, hey, next meeting we have, I'd like to present to you all
Yeah.
what's
I
going
gotta
on
talk
with
to
this
Dan and make
referendum.
sure he'll-
And that might bring more people in.
Does the PTO have any events planned in the next 60 days?
Yes, they do. There are several that we'll be tapping into, so tomorrow night, when we're meeting, I'll get their exact calendar of events.
Okay.
And we can push that out to say these are things that are going on here. Again, the more we can mobilize our families too, this, because they're the ones that are out in the community having fun social gatherings and whatnot. And I'm never invited to those fun social gatherings, but you know, they can certainly, I think, be a good trooper for us.
Where's
to advocate for
PTO
us.
meeting? Here,
PTO meets here, tomorrow's meeting is at 4 o'clock here.
4 o'clock?
And then we try to keep it closer to the end of the day so teachers and
Right.
students can attend, or moms can attend, parents. So there are some dads that attend as well. But
So in order to attend a PTO meeting, do you have to have a student in the,
to be a member of our PTO, you have to have a student enrolled here.
okay. Well, not
To be a
not a
member.
member, but can you attend?
I'm sure that you could attend. I can certainly clarify for them, but I'm sure they wouldn't have a
Because
problem.
I was told that as a grandmother of students, I couldn't.
Oh, interesting.
So,
I'll be following up on that one tomorrow.
okay,
because
good.
I think if anyone wants to be involved, if you're in the family, why not? I think it's when it
Well,
comes,
and
it's
I
a matter
don't
of,
necessarily want to be a member.
No,
I'd just
but-
like to,
well, they don't charge membership dues.
yeah.
So the other piece of this is, would they turn you down as a volunteer? Probably not. If you said, hey, I'll show up for the book fair, or whatever it is, they will definitely not turn you down because you need help.
Okay.
Nellie's
Mr.
trying to help.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when I was in PTO, I think it was parents and teachers, and it was never clarified at that time, but it's maybe a clarification that being school board members of the community, school board members may be able to go to those meetings and vote too. And that might be a clarification. in the PTO.
Or even grandparents, I mean.
I mean,
And
you
that
know what I
way,
mean?
I mean, you
Yeah.
guys would always.
I
What
get
do you
Yeah.
think, resident
Yeah.
teacher,
grandparent
former
there,
board member?
so.
I
I
think
go.
they've been
Yeah, I
so
know.
lowly attended that I don't know
Grandmother
if
Day,
there's
so-
really been discussion
Right.
about it.
I don't think they're gonna turn anybody away that shows up to a meeting and says,
No,
I'm gonna
generally it's my
talk and
wife.
hear.
You
and
know,
take
I've got
whatever
the
help I can
bylaws
get.
somewhere.
Honestly, they're having so much trouble, everyone's having trouble finding volunteers for everything. So I can't imagine if you showed up and said, how can I help? They're not gonna say,
I know,
oh, you're a
Dawn-
grandma.
I know when I was on the board, Dawn went to talk to PTO.
Oh, she was
Sure.
doing this all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, she had been our treasurer for a
Well,
while before
we can,
that.
we can,
Exactly.
we can check the bylaws.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
now how
attended,
would that?
I mean, I attended a couple of them last year, but I also had kids here, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, now I've got my son,
Johnny's
son,
kids here.
Yeah,
it's my guardian, but if all three of us show up, we'd have to post it as a quorum.
correct. So we gotta,
Gotta be
whatever it
careful.
is, we gotta coordinate efforts.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I see 3 of you, I'll send one of you home. Sorry. Especially if we didn't post it, because we don't wanna go there.
Right.
Can you live stream them?
We've had some Zoom calls. They did Zoom for a bit.
Yeah, they
but
did do
then
Zoom for a while.
They did,
That's
they
how I
tried.
joined, because it's the only way I could join
Oh,
4
of
o'clock
course, right,
regularly.
from work,
Yeah.
right. All right, so then, again, let's please follow up with me. I will reach out to you as we do normally do our correspondence and just check in on any dates or times you have. Whatever, again, whatever it is we come up with, the calendar of events or when we're gonna talk to people, that's gonna be on the postcard. So that postcard's gonna be getting sent out within the next week and a half or so. We wanna have that out as soon as possible so that we can calendar out, you know, how this is gonna look for our public.
Do you think it would be overcomplicated to, like, I just think of some of those sign-up geniuses to say, here are the events that we're gonna have, ever we add a new one, you throw it on there, so that then we could just, I don't wanna break any laws, but sign up for like, so we're only gonna have 2 people there, and Audrey took that slot, and
Oh, for the board.
And
you're
Mike
saying.
took that slot,
Yes.
just so we can get organized,
Yeah.
because I feel like us emailing you random dates and times is gonna get,
Yeah, well,
Very
what I need is,
challenging,
I need some initial suggestions of dates and events and things we're gonna be meeting at, because I do need to conjure that up. You know, once you talk with the fire department, is there a spot when they're having their meeting, let me know that date. I can certainly set up then a sign-up genius that would be easy for you to click your name and you're signed up and you're signed up, it's filled now, and I would only make 2 slots, so that way there's no overlap there.
I will reach out to the fire department in the village tomorrow to start setting that up, so we can try to get a date set. So within the next couple days, hopefully
And if it seems like I'm persistent, it's because time is of the essence on this.
Well, and that's where I go back to Ed's suggestion of just having somebody on the admin team call over to the village tomorrow and see
Yep.
what you guys can also get firsthand, not to.
Yeah,
Yep, yep. Absolutely.
Your job too.
Yeah. Good thing I'm talking
So
to
Mike,
Barbara.
regarding your open house chat, do people contact you before they come, or they just show up?
They just show up.
Okay, so you have no idea whether there would be one or none?
Correct.
Okay.
I try and keep it as
I-
simple and open as I can.
I will volunteer for the 11th and possibly the 18th.
So,
Wednesday?
yep, yep. Wednesday, good. Okay.
Better you than me this week.
So then we're just looking for people then in October, 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th.
I'll let you know when I get further.
Yeah.
Sure. And again, it doesn't mean, because I know there's obligations during those times,
Yeah.
then obviously you can oblige yourself to other things that work with your schedule. So just let me know when you can make it. I just want to have a sense of who's going to come from behalf of the board.
Just maybe these next 2 weeks.
This page right here is very good.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is what I wanted to also hit on. You were like, putty in my hands. So if you're wondering, by the way, if you're keeping score, we are also now into the item D on the agenda, which is referendum planning discussion about communication. So one of the items in your packet is the what does my vote mean? And this is just a list that was conjured up through discussions amongst our leadership team, and some staff have mentioned these things too because they're on their mind. And so the reality is, what does a yes vote mean? What does a no vote mean? And you want to create fact, not fear. However, some of these things, just by the nature of them, create fear. They just do. So for example, a yes vote, what does that mean? It means you authorize a district to obtain more revenue from local taxes, $750K over 4 years is $3 million. And what does that allow us to do? It allows us to attract and retain staff, provide competitive benefits packages, address compensation needs in our market, maintain high-quality facilities, and address basic maintenance needs, rebuild the fund balance from 2% towards 20%. I say towards because it's going to trend us up, but not get us there, especially now that we're at 2%. Maintain the values of local property, continue to strengthen and build community pride, create our district/building as a hub of the Raymond community, and it potentially helps us establish a Fund 80 community service fund for connecting our overall community. The reason why I say that is that's a separate conversation because that would be a separate funding source. But it allows us to at least be in a position to have that conversation to bring people into our doors in the community. The no vote denies the ability for us to obtain more tax revenue from our community. It would threaten the excellence of the district. It would cause us to reallocate and redesign elements of our school that could result in some program costs or programs that would be cut, grade level restructuring considerations, loss of support staff in vital roles. It could mean another staff salary freeze, which could cause an exit for some. Quite frankly, I think may have that effect. Potential increases in classes or section sizes, decreased enrollment if families decide to leave, loss of high-quality staff, and inability to recruit new staff to Raymond. Facilities could deteriorate or be in disrepair, decreased property and home value, and of course, loss of Raymond community pride. It doesn't mean our doors close. It just means the place is going to look and feel different.
I do feel like in the yes vote, having something really connected to the educational experience and diverse extracurriculars would be really great to have there. Like maintaining high quality education with diverse curriculars, because again, mission, learning, educational excellence focused. And while all of these other things are true, I think we have to have something education and student impacting directly. I mean, these other ones are, right?
No, it's fine.
But
I won't put them
very
down.
directly mentioned.
If,
You're supposed to mention those kids, they keep showing up.
Yeah.
They're
Just wanna have a-
That's right.
Leave with the child bullet,
Mine was very
please.
tired today when he got home.
if that referendum doesn't get passed, where are we in 3 to 4 years?
He said it would,
Because in
Well-
the near future, these things can happen.
Yes, so.
But if you go further out and you're
Go
short
back in
that,
April.
how, huh?
We go back in April.
Right,
Hey, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
I mean,
Oh.
so much
Oh.
as you predict, you just
And
ask
hope,
again.
and hope.
Okay,
right,
okay,
so
but-
this is the methodology that is frustrating people all over our state now.
Right.
Is, so what if this doesn't go, what happens? The first answer is,
We
ask again.
Yeah.
And that's the answer, and you just kind of go, hold on, that's all you can tell us? And they say, ask again. And then they say, oh, you can take out more of a loan. Okay, great, for a small district that makes sense, but not a good long-term strategy is the other solution. And then they do limit the number of asks, and now they're starting, the state is starting to, I don't want to say penalize, but they're starting to scrutinize the number of people who are asking questions. So there could be funding ramifications if you continue to ask and fail. The more you ask, the more you fail, the
Right.
more they're saying, stop asking, and there could be some funding.
And I don't wanna create any fear in the community. I don't, I really, really don't. But I'm just asking, if in 3 or 4 years, none of these referendums ever pass, where does that put us? Does that really cause us to cut staff way back? Does that really cause
We would have to look at pretty large scale
cost reduction?
restructure, cost reduction measures. You'd have to look at everything up into including, merging grade levels and having multi-age. Again, at this point, you'd have to have a special committee just to do that, just to look at that. And so I didn't want to start off my time here with that planning. I wanted to be more on the optimism, and realist side of, I think we can do some good communicating and get this thing where it needs to go.
And I don't even wanna go there, but
But the problem is.
somebody may
it's-
ask the question.
Right, it becomes pretty tight, pretty quick. We could probably survive next year on a little bit of cutback, restructure and some loan. And then after next year, it just gets, every year the gap grows, negative fund balance grows. And there are 10 school districts in Wisconsin right now as we speak that have negative fund balances. And we're
So
watching them to
do
see how they,
exist?
I don't know.
How do they continue to exist?
The state has come up with creative measures. I have to talk with their people to see how they're even doing it. Barrett has no solution for that. They just have said, like, we are working to find,
USOL.
it sort of is. And then districts are consolidating, districts are merging.
But
And
in the
again,
next 4 years, might there also be different state funding that shows up, like?
Could be less.
Could be less,
yeah,
so
Can't say.
understanding
what
exactly what the
legislature-
picture is, challenging to
so
predict.
it's a critical moment for public ed,
Yeah.
not just Raymond Public Ed. So again, I would encourage you to use your board position that way as well. Advocacy letters can go a long way. I can certainly show you some letters that have been written from other places I've been that I'd like to think they get read with some more seriousness from a school board than,
WASB just put out a training telling us, like, there's a training for advocacy, like how school board members can participate in that, so probably a good thing to
And
workshop in the future.
just
not
lead
to
in.
go off school board, but like even with our snowmobile clubs, we're really pushing all of our members and everything to really get to know your legislature, talk to them, push for legislature, push for stuff, and that's something we have to do as a community too, as a state, with the school funding. Because we're doing it with laws for snowmobiles, which is nothing compared to the education of the kids. So
Yeah.
that's where it really, it works for the snowmobile clubs. Maybe we need to start doing on the school levels and getting communities to really reach the legislatures and tell them, hey, this funding needs to get fixed.
Absolutely. So this is the what does my vote mean? Then additionally on the bottom there, I just put the ballot question because some people may ask that, what does this look like? And I can tell you that referendum questions don't read real well. They're written as sort of like it's almost like a bad riddle.
I know,
So if, then, so ours is written as, shall our school district be authorized to exceed the revenue limit specified in section 12191 by $750 per year for 4 years, beginning 24-25, ending 27-28. Again, it's a yes, no.
Did these have to be written a certain way?
They do.
Yeah, that's legal.
And did we have to pay somebody to do this?
Yes, we did. Yes, this is part of our legal
Oh,
fees.
my God.
Was this particular instance, and it's gotta be written that way or the ballot won't accept it. And there were a couple districts that I just ran into that had to reword theirs, kind of emergency reword. Not sure why it became an emergency, but that just means increased cost. So again, it does have to go through the process. And we are all aligned with the county right now. I called and made sure everything we've got turned in. Patty and I had an email that said we're kosher with our process and making sure we have that.
So it's for sure on the ballot.
It's on the ballot.
That would really suck.
Yeah, right.
Oops, we missed,
That would be a bad
timeframe.
one. That'd be a bad one, yeah. I missed that
Okay.
memo. So again, this is really, the purpose of tonight was to get you to start forward thinking, realize we are down to 56 days. It's gonna be a pretty big hustle. The benefit of that is it's over quick. I mean, there are districts that spend months and months and months and months belaboring this, and I think sometimes that builds to fatigue points. There is a risk if we don't pass this in November and we just continue, that we'll hit that same fatigue point on April. But let's hope that we just can get this information to people so that they can make the decision that makes sense to them. It's, support Raymond in the way they see fit. So that is where we are with our meeting. So any other questions? I will follow up with you as we have our weekly correspondence and reaching out, and if you can let me know. I will also have our leadership team reach out in the coming days to the village to see, what events
See
they
your
have.
little, that's your cheat sheet right here, right?
Yes.
That you're gonna put down.
I do have, if you're wondering, I got the last listings of referendum, what they covered. Our debt service obligation, which is just the energy, right now it's just the energy efficiency exemption we're still paying off from about a decade ago.
Would there be any value in creating one of these or one of these to show what the budget was over the last couple of years? Because I know even the budget this year is less than last year,
Yes.
as planned.
Mhm.
So,
To show
it shows
the
that
trend of the budget over
we're
the
not being, you're
Right.
being fiscally responsible
Sure.
and maintaining good things, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I
my
think we can
thoughts.
certainly look at those pieces, and I can chart it up. Okay, any other comments or questions about referendum?
No.
I'm sure there are lots, but for the purposes of tonight. And I just wanted to remind you about the other documentation that's in your folder, just to talk about for Monday's meeting.
Right.
Thank you. I like the motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Oh, you second. Okay. All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. 6:48.
All right, so who wants to help me tech sheet this? Because it's podcasting right now, and it's not.
Yeah, I kept kind of going off and on.
Did it go in and out?
Yeah.
Because it says live, excellent connection.
Yeah, some people are like, nope, it's not on, some are like, it's on now.
Weird.
The Lion
The
King
only thing
died.
I can think about is people want to say,
Oh,
James
The
Earl Jones.
recording would get pulled from this.
I got a
Yeah.
thing earlier today.
93, I think.
Yeah.
For Stanley
Wow.
Cup a month.
Patty, you signed everything in here that you needed to?
yeah, the other Patty got me to sign it.